So, this week I spent 24 hours transforming this island into an outstanding exotic outpost. First step was to make the island over in World Painter. I mainly wanted to have a tall mountain overlooking the island, so that eventually I could turn that into a huge volcano erupting over the island. And also, I included an arc carved into the side of the beach so I could build a rounded harbour area. My plan for this island is to make a village surrounding the seafront, and then with the open fields in the centre of the island, I was to transform that into a huge farmland with windmills and oases. With those plans in mind, and the map finished, it was time to start the 24-hour transformation. To start off this project, I started by working on the seafront, which included a wide pier stretching across the whole arc of the island. For this seafront area, I mainly stuck to using different blocks of stone and spruce wood. Now with the pier out of the way, it was now time to start construction on the small village that was to be situated on the land above the pier. Similar to the pier, I was to stick with a stone and spruce theme for the buildings. After a few trials and errors, I finally decided on a shape and theme that worked for the buildings. With this style, I proceeded to make multiple similar buildings, all different heights and sizes, surrounding the arc of the harbour. For the floor, I went for once again a stone theme, but this time it was to include multiple types of stone to give the floor a lot more detail. To separate the buildings from the floor, I added a few bushes at the base of the buildings to add contrast and colour when looking at the village. So, after finishing the harbour, I decided to turn my attention to making the beach a bit more detailed. I had no plan whatsoever when it came to the beach. I did want to just cover it all in palm trees, but I thought that was a bit lazy, so after a few experiments I decided to decorate the beach with palm trees, a pond and a watermill. Now the structure was starting to take place on the island, with both main outskirts of the island complete, it was time to move on to the centre, where I had plans to make a huge farming field with animal barns and wheat fields. Leading up to the central part, I decided to make a waterfall flowing down the side of the mountain into a pond that I decorated with cobblestone and mossy cobblestone to give it an older effect. With a structure started to take place on this farm field, I now decided to start construction on the farmhouses. I wanted to go for a lighter colour theme with these buildings compared to the harbour, to complement the wheat once I added it in. The blocks I went for were a selection of oak woods and hay bales. I think this may be the first time I've ever used stripped oak logs in any sort of build. To the side of each of these buildings I attached animal pens to make the farm look a bit more functional. Now it was time to add the huge wheat fields covering most of the central piece of the island. To add a bit of contrast in the wheat fields, I added rows of coarse dirt to separate each row, to make it look like some crops had already been gathered by the villagers on the island. The last thing I had left to do with this part of the island was add vegetation around the edges of the farm, to separate it from the harbour and the beach. Next, I gave the back of the island a bit of attention by connecting a path leading down from the farm to this newly built fishing docks I was working on. I'm really happy with how this part of the island turned out. This may be my favourite build so far, just because of the detail I managed to fit into the docks. With a raised piece of land off of the side of the farm, I thought it would be suitable to make a windmill overlooking the farmland. I tried to keep the block palette similar to the farmhouse by using mainly oak woods, but with the introduction of cobblestone to make the windmill look more rustic. Now we're almost done with the transformation. To make this island look even more functional, I added a mine off of the left side of the harbour. I made a small cave entrance leading into a cave that would eventually take you to the bottom of the volcano. To make this build fit into the harbour, I stuck with similar blocks, but this time I introduced a new range of stone blocks to keep the contrast from the harbour and to separate both aspects of the island. I decorated the outside of the mine with minecarts, piles of logs, and barrels to emphasize the survival aspect of the transformation. With all of the main builds out of the way, this is what the island looks like so far. The only problem was that you've only seen the build in the daytime, and that's because in the nighttime it's completely pitch black. To change that, I decided to add light sources to the main parts and paths of the island. I used mainly lanterns to make a light, just because I thought lanterns fit in better with the theme I was going for. For the farmland, I used quite an interesting way of lighting the area up. I used jack-o'-lanterns on T-shaped fences to make them look like scarecrows and also working as light sources at the same time. Now with these lanterns, I must say this island hasn't looked better. Now for the biggest part of the island, the volcano. My main goal for this volcano was to make it look like it was erupting across the village, so I made huge fireballs coming out from the top of the volcano, arched over the village. I used a mix of yellow, orange and red stained glass and stained glass panes to make the fire effect, and I filled the insides with lava, so at night it would look something like this. Transformation complete. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. In 24 hours, I've taken a completely bare island, and in the space of a day, I've turned it into a huge exotic outpost. If you did enjoy, any support is greatly appreciated. If you do have any suggestions for future uploads, leave them down in the comments below. Other than that, thanks for watching, thanks for your time, thank you for 3,000 subscribers, have a great rest of your day, bye.